Today we're going to be putting GitHub CoPilot up against OpenAI's Davinci 2 code model in a head-to-head. I'm going to give both tools the same natural language instructions so there's no bias and see which does the best job. The instructions will be to write a Python script that accepts a folder path as an input and renames each file in the folder with an incrementing number. I'll also throw a couple of other requirements in the mix and see how accurately the final code matches the instructions. Think you know who'll win the battle? Leave a comment below, watch till the end and see if you guess correctly. These are the files I want the script to rename. There's a real use case for this script. These files are actually clips recorded by OBS Studio for this YouTube channel, and I find it hard working with a date stamp for a file name. An incrementing number would be much easier, as long as the files remain numbered in the same order that I recorded them. So, first into the ring for this head-to-head, and weighing in at $10 per month for a single user subscription is GitHub CoPilot! GitHub CoPilot integrates directly into VS Code as an extension. The price is $10 per month, which for me is good value as I write a lot of code both for work and my own side projects. CoPilot works in two ways. It will either provide autocomplete as you're writing code, often suggesting many lines at a time, not just the next keyword, and it gets it correct a lot of the time, sometimes requiring a few tweaks, but without doubt saving a lot of time. The second way to use GitHub CoPilot is, as we're doing in this example, just simply write some instructions as comments in the code. This is called natural language programming. CoPilot takes the instructions and converts them to code, and it knows what language we're using by the extension of the file we're currently editing. In this case, .py for Python. Each instruction is written on a separate line. This is simply to make it more understandable to humans. It could be written as a single paragraph. The first line says that I want the script to accept an argument, which should be a path to a folder, and to parse the command with using argv. Being specific about argv here is important. If I just said write a script that accepts an argument, it would probably write a function that accepted an argument, which, while perfectly valid and maybe what I want in some cases, is not what I want here. The second line says I want to find any files in the folder that have an extension of .mkv. The third says to rename all the files found to a numerically incrementing number, and I give an example. The fourth and fifth line set some conditions. The script should not try to name a new file to one that already exists, and lastly to go ahead and rename the file, which I don't think is required because I already told it to do that on line 3 anyway. When you're done with the instructions, just hit enter a few times and CoPilot gets to work. You have to press tab a few times to accept the suggestions as it creates the code, but I find this helpful as it lets you understand the code being written if you need to make any tweaks. CoPilot seems to have done a good job. The code is fully documented, and going through it we can see it seems to do what we asked and has added some nice features. It uses argv as we asked. It added an if statement to check that the path we added exists, so CoPilot understands the context of our instruction, that we were expecting a file system folder as an argument, not just a string of text. There's also a matching else at the end which prints an error if the folder doesn't exist. It gets all the files in the folder, loops over the list checking with an if statement if the file has an extension of .mkv, splits the file into file name and extension, keeps track of the new file name with a counter starting at 1, then uses a while loop to check the new file name does not already exist, which is what we asked, and then renames the file. So let's put it to the test. The files to rename are on the right, so we can see if the script works. In the terminal, I use Python to run the script GitHub CoPilot created, and I pass in a single argument, which in this case is a single period to reference the current folder. After hitting return, the script renames all the files as I wanted. I would call this a success. The code generated was what I asked for. with some nice error checking included, and was fully commented, making it easy to change if I had needed to. Next into the ring and weighing in at $2 per 750 words is OpenAI's Davinci 2. The pricing model for OpenAI is very different to that of GitHub CoPilot, where CoPilot costs $10 per month for unlimited use. OpenAI charges $2 per 750 words. Words include the words in your instructions plus the words returned by the response. But you do get $18 of free credit to trial OpenAI. VS Code does have a plugin for OpenAI, but I wanted to try the online playground first. I pasted the commands into the terminal and preceded them with a clarifier that I wanted to generate a Python script. There is no extension in the playground that OpenAI could infer the language from. The initial results were not good, as you can see. However, I persevered to get the format correct that OpenAI wanted to see, which turned out to be triple quotes. That looks better, but not perfect. There are no comments in the code. The code is also trying to sort my files before it renames them, which is not what I asked for. So I decided to look at the VS Code integration for OpenAI. It was a really frustrating experience trying to get the correct format that the extension needed. It will only respond to lines that begin with //space@AI rather than comments like GitHub CoPilot uses. This also means you get red error highlighting because it's not valid Python code. It's not a showstopper, but I don't like it. So I replaced each of my Python comment characters with //space@AI, and I reran OpenAI. This wasn't correct either. OpenAI tried to create a different program in the same file from each instruction line rather than a list of instructions for one task. Then the script crashed with a 429 status code. Finally, I found that I had to create a single line starting with //space@AI and have all my instructions on a single line with no line breaks. This did generate the script, but I didn't like what I was seeing. This was a seriously over-engineered script for what I had asked for. The script was running change directory commands and string translations. I decided in the end to go with the code that OpenAI Davinci Playground had originally generated. We can see that the code looks usable, albeit a bit over-engineered for what is required, but a lot less so than that generated by the VS Code plugin. OpenAI has gone with a better script layout than CoPilot by using if dunderName equals dunderMain, which means the script can be run standalone or imported into another script. The script uses argv as requested. It checks that an argument has been supplied to the script and also that it's a valid path, but goes one step further than GitHub CoPilot by checking that the path is also a folder. It gets a list of files, then creates another list by filtering the first for those names that contain .mkv. It sorts the files, which I didn't ask for, then loops over the files using enumerate, creating a new file name and checking if the file already exists before renaming the file. After running the program, it did work and the files were renamed correctly. So what are the pros and cons of GitHub CoPilot and OpenAI's Davinci? Let's start with CoPilot first and the pros. I found CoPilot easy to use. CoPilot already knows the language you're using from the name of the file you're editing, and it takes its natural language instructions from the native comments of the programming language you're using. It generated the code I described in my natural language program, nothing more and nothing less. The VS Code integration works well. In fact, it's seamless and it can be turned on and off by the click of a button in the taskbar. GitHub CoPilot can be used for traditional code completion as well as code generation, as I've shown in this example. The price of $10 per month for unlimited use is reasonable in my opinion and well worth the cost for the use that I get from it. The code CoPilot generates is fully commented and it's not over-engineered. There is often more than one way of doing something in any programming language, the easy way and the complex way. Both work, and the complex way may impress your colleagues initially, but that soon wears off when they have to edit the code in the future. GitHub CoPilot just feels like a well thought out and mature product, and I find it really nice to use. So on to the cons. Well, I couldn't think of any cons. You've watched this video and you might disagree with me, and please comment if you're screaming like a baby and banging the table because you don't agree. It probably won't change my mind, but go for it anyway. The YouTube algorithm loves a good disagreement in the comment section. On to OpenAI's pros and cons, starting with the pros. OpenAI offers an option to generate code in a web-based environment, and that provides options to tweak different settings. The code generation works and in some ways did a better job than GitHub CoPilot. The code was quite close to what I asked for, which was nice, like it's nice when your plane lands quite close to the airport, although it did add some features that I didn't ask for, and that would make me trust it less than GitHub CoPilot. There is a VS Code extension for OpenAI's Davinci, and it did work, but we'll talk more about that in the cons as well. So what are the cons to OpenAI's Davinci? At one point, while using VS Code plugin, I got an error which required me to rerun the instructions. I found the VS Code extension difficult and cumbersome to use. The web-based system was better, but it wasn't natural and didn't feel native to the language I was programming in, like GitHub CoPilot does. The code produced was, in my opinion, over-engineered, especially in that produced by the VS Code integration. The code produced in the playground was less so, but that meant leaving VS Code. Davinci also added features that I hadn't asked for in my natural language instructions. The code was not commented, and that makes it much more difficult to debug later while working out what Davinci is trying to do. Davinci is limited to code generation, and there's no way to do code completion as you can with GitHub CoPilot. In conclusion, there's a clear winner here for me, and it's GitHub CoPilot. Did you make a guess in the comments at the beginning of the video? Did you get it right? For me, GitHub CoPilot nailed it. The ease of use, the accuracy of the code it produced, the seamless integration into VS Code, and the fact that it also supports code completion makes it an all-round AI programming assistant. If you don't agree, you can leave your thoughts in the comments and I will respond. Let me know in the comments if you're using GitHub CoPilot, if you're using another AI assistant, or if you just don't like them. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you want to see more like this, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you get notified when I release new videos. For now, take care, stay well, and keep